All right, perfect. So we're here on another episode of Shakespeare and Beer with Michael. Michael, what's your last name?
Sasser, Michael Sasser.
Sasser. Perfect. All right, and you are a Boudoir. Boudoir? How do you pronounce it? Boudoir?
So it's pronounced boudoir.
Boudoir.
Yeah, pretty simple. But if you haven't heard it before, you sort of look at the words. It's kind of weird because it's a French word.
That's right. Yeah, pretty interesting. There's a lot of there's a lot of people that dabble into it. Not a lot of people, making a good living off of it or actually make it a career. So that's kind of the reason why you're kind of on the episode today. You got a lot of insight, a lot of information with regards to running a business out of it. And tips for people to use that can definitely benefit them. So, but before we actually get into all those really cool details on how to run a business as a photographer, I want to give the listeners a little bit of background of Michael here. So, did you grow up here in Los Angeles? You're in Los Angeles, correct?
Yeah, I'm in LA.
Okay.
Yeah, basically, like a little background is I grew up in Texas in Galveston, little small kind of island right off the coast, and I wanted to do like some graphic design stuff, but I wasn't very good at it. I went to school at University of Denver, and that was good stuff. I enjoyed it out there. I went skiing a whole bunch, and then I found photography when I did my study abroad in Australia. So
Oh,
I
that's
went
pretty
out there
cool.
and yeah, I took a camera. It was my first camera. Dad got one for me, and I wasn't really even planning on using it, but it's really pretty out there. So I took a bunch of pictures and started to see that maybe this is something I want to get better at and learn more about. So that was that was like 14 years ago,
Wow.
and yeah. So then I just kind of kept going and found one form of photography to the next.
What did you start shooting in the beginning?
So when I was still a hobbyist, it was all basically like landscapes, flowers, sunsets, stuff like that. I didn't really understand why like photographs of people were popular. It just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Right.
I didn't connect to it at all. And then when I got back to the States, I started taking pictures of the family and then some friends, and then I started to see what was special about it. So I kind of stuck with that. I got my first job doing customer service for a children's sports photography company.
Mm,
They would like take pictures of little Johnny swinging his baseball bat and then sell them back to their parents. So I did that for a couple of years until I realized I was 21 at the time, 21, 22, but I just realized I was making like 150 bucks a day, and it was mostly in the summer on the weekends. It just wasn't going to be enough money for me as I got older.
right.
150 bucks a day, 200 bucks a day is awesome if you're 21 and have
Yeah.
no living expenses. But, if I wanted to buy the gear I wanted to buy and I wanted to have more time, I realized I needed to start shooting on my own. So I started
Right.
shooting portraits, high school seniors, headshots for like the theater, uh, school at Denver. And then that moved into shooting weddings. And then that moved into shooting video, learning to shoot video. And that's helped me make my YouTube channel. And then that moved to Boudoir, which is what I exclusively shoot now. I've been doing that for about 4 years
That's cool.
exclusive.
Yeah, I saw on the video that I actually saw of you is that you were talking about how you were doing I think this happens with a lot of photographers. They when they start shooting, they're kind of just trying to figure out what they actually like or what they would want to do. Either for a living or whatnot, because you obviously want to enjoy what you do. You don't want to make it seem like it's too much work or like you're annoyed of it. And I saw that you were shooting weddings, and weddings was a little more as like work. You really, I mean, I always give props to anybody who does wedding photography because it seems like a lot of work, and that's kind of like what made you transition.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much that it was just a lot of work. It was just I kind of got out of touch with it, like
Yeah.
I just found myself. It just felt like Groundhog Day. It was I just was no longer invested in the couples or them having their beautiful pictures. It was just sort of like just get the pictures that mattered and get out of there. And I looked at some of my friends that were still shooting weddings, and they were like, "I had the best wedding yesterday, and the couple was so cool. We had so much fun. I can't wait to show the pictures." And I just wasn't feeling any of that, and I could start to see it in the quality of my work. And that mixed in with all the other things that I didn't love, like needing to take group pictures and driving a long way to go get to the weddings. And I just wasn't as invested in taking pictures of the details of the garter belt and the wedding invitations, just all that stuff. I just could tell my heart wasn't in it anymore.
Yeah.
And so better for me, better for the clients if they had somebody who was really into it, which was great because that's kind of when I started to become attached to what was so special about Boudoir, and then just like really pursuing that 100%.
And walk me a little bit through that transition and how you went from like shooting wedding. What was your first boudoir shoot like, and how did you start developing like the knowledge of like, because positioning, their poses and stuff like those are all very difficult, like especially hands, body and stuff like that. It's an art in itself. So how
Yeah,
did you kind of
so
learn all that?
so that's a lot of it's trial and error, but the let's see, my first couple of boudoir shoots were they were bad. I found some girls to shoot. I shot them just in my house. I used a light, and they look bad. It's what first pictures look like.
Yeah.
But and at that point, it was just about taking pictures of pretty girls um, and sort of learning. I was like, I don't know how to pose a bride in a big dress. Like maybe if I get myself outside of that um, sort of space, I'll be able to learn more about posing and trying some different things. And so it was all experimental at first until I had a couple friends of friends ask me to do their pictures, and again they not great, but I earned a little bit of money, $200 here. One of them I charged $400, which was really cool. And those were my first two paid boudoir shoots. And then when I decided I wanted to get real serious about it, um, there was like a practice workshop that was held. It was like, we're going to take this workshop on the road, but first we need some feedback. So I went to that and I learned, it was 2 days and I learned a ton. And I was like, I think I could make this a business, and I'm not shooting in the winter time. So let me actually put together a website and everything. So I set up a bunch of shoots, and the way that I learned was a lot through Pinterest. I created a Pinterest board. This is before like Facebook groups were really, maybe even before Facebook groups were a thing. There had to have been Facebook groups, but there wasn't as much like photography boudoir Facebook groups where you could
Right.
like go into and get information and learn. And so I just bunch of Pinterest photos, and I'd hold my phone up and I'd be like, okay, now move your left arm to the left, and now point your right toe, and that's kind of how I started to learn posing until I stopped needing my phone because I kind of learned some of the things that I wanted to try, and I was no longer creating other people's work. I was more just remembering what I liked and kind of putting that into practice. So that's kind of how everything got started.
Yeah, I think it's kind of important too when one of the ways that I've always learned everything that I do, and I mean like most photographers, I'm self-taught. YouTube University, just sitting there learning stuff, watching videos, and just kind of learning things on my own.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the most important things to do is always to just and correct me if I'm wrong, but looking at the actual picture and just liking certain things of either a pose or a frame or anything, and just kind of remembering that and like, hey, that looks good in that angle, so I'm gonna kind of like a little checklist of kind of things that look good, and kind of add that and expand it as you get more experience. And a lot of people get discouraged when they take photos and they don't come out as good, and they're just like I'm not good at this, I'm gonna give up. And a lot of times the failures that you do, like the failed shoots, are what you could learn from the most, because you can see the errors and then just kind of avoid that the next time, right?
Yeah, essentially, the goal is just to take something that you like and discard what you don't like.
Right.
From every picture, and you start to take, wow, I really like how this person uses light, but their posing, I don't agree with at all. But I love this person's posing, but the light doesn't really work. So you kind of pull in a little bit from both. And yeah, I think a lot of people want their pictures to be perfect before they take them. Somebody just messaged me yesterday and said, hey, I'm just about to do my first photo shoot. Any tips? And I say, you know what? Your first photo shoot is just about doing it. It's just
Yeah.
about having the experience, because it's not going to be your only photo shoot. You're going to do a ton more. Imagine somebody saying like, hey, I want to make sure the first time that I ride my bike, it's perfect. It's like, that's not the point at all. The point is just to get on the bike,
Right.
and then you're going to get better as you go. It's like that with a lot of things. Any tips for playing piano for the first time? Just put your fingers on the keys, and then you'll get better as time goes on. So I think that's the biggest thing to remember. When people are just first starting, is that first photo shoot isn't supposed to be special. It's not supposed to be. I mean, not that it's not special. Your first, especially boudoir shoot, it's outside of a lot of people's comfort zones. It's outside of a
Right.
lot of photographers' comfort zones. So it should be, fun for you. But that's mostly the point, is just to have a fun experience, test some things out, see what you liked about it, and then go back and worry about improving your pictures. But at
Right.
first, just make it happen.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And what about, walk me a little through your experience in communication with your models? I know a lot of, I mean, from what I see, a lot of the models that you shoot are not like your experienced models that have 10, 15 years of experience that kind of naturally, pose their body or know how to move or how to, position themselves. And going from, especially when you're first starting to get into photography, it's, even through my experiences just shooting portraits, you find that trying to communicate a pose, like you have that image in your head on what you want it to look like, but it's a little difficult to communicate that for them to understand and implement it on that shoot. So how did that work for you?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I want to do is sort of define boudoir, because I think that'll help explain basically what you said about models, not experienced. And this is something that, boudoir is a very misunderstood niche, depending on where you're coming from, depending on what culture, what you know about photography. So a lot of people see pictures of like pretty girls in underwear and they're like, oh, that's a model. And so boudoir is not the photography of models. It is the photography of everyday women who, that's outside of their comfort zone. They've typically never done anything like this. I have some repeat clients who come back, but my typical client is like she's in her 30s. She's likely either had some kids or she's planning to have some kids. So she wants to document her body before that happens. Or after she's had kids, maybe she's feeling like, um, she sort of lost touch with that like femininity and that desire that she has. Now she's a mom, so she doesn't get dressed up and go out. Sometimes I'll have clients who have been divorced and now they're trying to find, feel desirable again after maybe feeling like their marriage didn't work because they weren't good enough. Things like that. So that's really what boudoir is, and them, the pictures being vulnerable, sexy, intimate pictures is a way to first of all, sort of allow them to reclaim their identity as this, powerful, sexy or attractive or desirable person that maybe has been difficult for them to see because society's got difficult standards on them. So boudoir
Right.
is really like a phototherapy more so than it is like, let's take some pictures of some hot girls and like post them on Instagram for likes.
Yeah.
You can do that, and that's, I mean, more power to you. But if you're gonna be getting into boudoir, you're gonna have to learn to photograph people who have never had their picture taken before
Right.
because they have never had their picture taken before. So my answer to that is, first of all, is you're gonna have to do a lot of photo shoots. If you want to learn how to pose somebody the way you want to pose them, you're gonna have to do a lot of photo shoots. The next thing you're going to want to do is practice getting into the poses. So when you explain something, it can be difficult to say, I want your shoulders slightly turned this way and your lower back arched, then take your head tilt and just tilt it a little bit to the right. You're going to have to say, like, look at my head, and then just go like this. You're going to have to say, face me completely, and then I'm going to turn this way a little bit and follow me just like that. Your hands, go ahead and grab your shirt with both your hands. Yep. And then take your thumbs and kind of pull them in a little bit closer. You're going to have to say those kind of things and show them because they literally don't know what they're doing. In fact, they may be trying to replicate something that they saw in a fashion magazine that doesn't actually look good. So
Right.
sometimes it's about telling them what not to do. But essentially, some good ways to do, some research, YouTube. I've got some posing videos on YouTube. I've got some posing information on in my courses. You can do the Pinterest route where you go that way. You can join some Facebook groups. I do live critiques in my Facebook group, so you can send in pictures and I'll give you tips on what to change in the poses and things like that. So there's a ton that you can do, but essentially you're probably going to have to show them, number one, you're going to have to show them what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, the stuff that you do, it looks great. I mean, I was looking through your page, and it looks like you really have the experience to be able to use somebody who doesn't model, has never done it before, and be able to take those kind of shots and execute it. It's pretty. It's an art in itself, but um, it's also big tip that I usually give people, and I'm sure you do as well, is it's one thing to, the videos that you create and YouTube channels, you get all this information, but that information will never be good if you don't implement it, if you don't go out and try it as much as possible. Like you said, you just got to get your feet wet, and you just got to jump in and do it and fail, and learn from your mistakes, and then just kind of continue from there. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. So that's the big thing. Actually, that's what my Facebook group is all based around, is about taking action, because inspiration. It's so funny. Gary Vaynerchuk, he's had a roller coaster of the information that he puts out, but he had a section where he was like, "I hate being motivational, Gary, because nobody ever takes action with the motivation I give them. They feel really good for a day, and then the next day nothing really ends up happening for
Yeah.
results, and they lose their motivation, and then nothing happens." And so that's right. You can watch all the videos you want, and you can type in, hey, I think what you need to do is use your light differently. But if you've never done it yourself, you probably don't actually know. And there's another good video out there. The YouTube channel Smarter Every Day. I don't know if you've seen it,
I
but he
haven't.
has a video about his bicycle. You turn left, you go left. You turn right, you go right on a bicycle. That's how it works. But he set up a bike where you turn right and then the wheel goes
Oh
left.
man.
You turn left and the wheel goes right. So if you were to say that, like, yes, I understand how that works, or I know how that works. You get on that bicycle. It took him 8 months to be able to ride that bicycle. And his point is that knowledge is not understanding.
All right.
You can read something, you can write something, you can watch a video that explains something, but until you do it, you don't actually understand. And not only that, there's no record of it. So for the person who watches a video and then takes 5 photo shoots of like pretty average, below average pictures, they have photos to share. They're already improving. Whereas the person who says, "Oh, I watched a ton of videos and I know that those photos are bad," I can look at those photos and say those photos aren't as good as the photos that I've seen. Like, sure, but you haven't created anything yet, and you're no closer to becoming a better photographer
Right.
than the person that's actually doing it. So
Yeah. Yeah, and one thing that talking about Gary, he's big on kind of like what you're doing, creating the content, creating knowledge. I mean, you put out free videos, you have your YouTube channel, you have things that have information that you're providing to photographers that they can pretty much just watch as many times as they want. You're not earning anything from it, yourself directly. But again, that stuff, it's good information, but it's going to go nowhere if you're not implementing it. And I mean, at least to your case, you're creating. That's one thing I saw from Gary as well. That you put out that content out there, people are going to see it. Your own exposure is being put out there, and you're giving out free stuff, so people are more like, oh, cool, like this guy's learning it. So I mean, I'm like that myself. I have people, I'll post up pictures. Most of the pictures that I put up, I always put camera settings. Camera settings are great. I get people ask me camera settings all the time, and it's like, that's not, I mean, you're outdoors, that can change, within 10 minutes. Light can change in 10 minutes, and you're going to have a complete different type of settings on your camera. Which I'm always like, hey, this is what you do. These are tips. I'll send links. A lot of my followers I've sent links to on how to learn or buy certain things. But I mean, at the end of the day, you got to implement it to really know how to do it.
absolutely.
Yeah, and then how did you the most I think the the photography side of things, it's you know, you can learn. Like me, I'm sure you, everybody else who does photography, they've picked up a camera little by little, learned all the little tips and tricks on how to create a shot, right? I think the hardest part of photography is the business side of it. Um, Most people can pick up a camera and learn it, like I said, but most people can't just learn business from one day to another. It's very difficult to learn how to price. It's very difficult to learn how, you know, how to just put everything together, how to really value your work and then present it to a customer and, you know, make money off of it. That's the hardest part of photography, I think, because you can learn all the other stuff and just kind of learn from experience, but you can sit there and charge your customers, you know, $100, $200 per shoot, $300 per shoot for your whole life, and you're just not going to really understand, you know, how to, you know, really charge or break down the pricing of each item to be able to make a living off of it. And I think you've put out enough content. I mean, I watched what was it, like, I think it was like a 15-minute video where you kind of broke that down, and I thought it was so simple. Like the way you just kind of break it down, it seems like a simple process, but the information is kind of hard because everybody has their own opinion on how to price and how to, you know, really make money off of it.
So the business side of things is really, you know, for most people, what holds them back is the mental. It's believing that they are worthy of charging a couple $1,000s for their photo shoots. You know, oftentimes it's, you know, I can't find anybody who's willing to spend more than $100. Is really not is really not. Sometimes that is true, but typically it means you're not doing things correctly, and also it means that, you know, you probably may not value yourself to charge to get away from those clients that think $100 is too much.
Mm-hmm.
Start finding clients that will be grateful to spend $1,000. I remember, um, you know, I've been told before, from some clients, like, you're not charging enough money. And to me, I'm like, I'm already uncomfortable charging how much I
Right,
am.
right,
And so that's the first thing that I would say is that, most of the time that discussion of somebody sticking at $100 to $300 their whole photography life is not based around knowledge. It's based around a mental block in their head that says, I'm taking advantage of people if I charge more than this. So that's probably the first thing. The second thing is, I might disagree with you that, that learning to take images is the easy part, learning to do the business is the hard part. Because to me, like, you can follow what somebody else has done. It might be difficult to understand. Okay, I don't know how to use light. Some people have a really hard time just seeing light. You know, right now, the way that I've got this camera set up, I bought this little bitty, LED panel that's right here. I've got my little accent lights in the background. I just put up this curtain today, so it's not blocking, you know, it's not a bright space back there. Like, for somebody to watch a video on light in general, and then for them to sit down and put something like this together might be difficult for them. But if you say, like, I don't know how to price myself, that's something like, for instance, in my photography course, we go over my exact pricing guide, and you can just use that pricing guide. If you wanted to, you could make adjustments and tier it down. I show you, where do you buy albums? I don't know where to buy albums. I show you where I buy albums from. If you're not sure what to respond in an email to a client who inquires, I've got email templates. So things like that, you know, if you find somebody that you believe, wants to run their business the same way that, you want to run your business, then it can be very easy to just implement the things that they've done right into your business.
right.
Things that are more difficult are like writing your about me page. How do you explain why you do what you do? Some people are not very good writers. Things like that are really difficult. But pricing is something it's there's not, to get like really sophisticated in pricing. Like, yes, it can go really deep and get really complicated, and the mental and the psychology behind it. But to go from $100 to $600 or $700 is like, it's not that hard. And most people who are comfortable spending $200 are also comfortable spending $600. You just have to convey the value to them more properly. Same as like some people who contact me, and they say, wow, it's okay. So a photo shoot is $500, and then an album starts at $1,000. So it's $1,500 pretty much to shoot with me. So sometimes I'll get somebody that'll say, wow, that sounds like a lot. Do you do payment plans? Is that something that I can do? And I might have to really keep it to those 10 images. Then they'll come in and they'll spend $3,000 or $4,000. So sometimes people really will, once they have the experience, they'll be willing to spend more money because they get so much more value from it actually having the experience. But you do have to set up your pricing in a way that allows for that. The way that I put it, the way that I heard it, was it's not a high pressure sales scenario. You're just giving them the ability to spend money with you. You're giving them the ability to purchase the things that they want. So instead of saying, having it be hard sales, like if you walk out this door, I'm deleting your pictures, and oh, you thought it was going to be $500, surprise, it's $1,000. I don't do anything like that. I let them know up front, this is what to expect, and if they willingly, decide to hire me, then they also have the option of spending much more than that, and typically, seeing a lot more pictures that really move them, that make a difference in their life, is it's worth every penny.
Right. No, yeah, and I mean, one of the big things that I see in what you do is the value. There's a lot of value in, like you said, moms or people in their 30s that kind of lost their touch and feeling, the way they did when they were younger. You're giving them value in a photo where they're like, wow, like this is amazing. This is awesome. So that gives you the opportunity to not like you said, you pressure them to a sale, but they see it and they're more they're pushed towards like wanting to purchase it. They're like, oh yeah, I like this stuff. So
This is how I might explain it for anybody who's ever been to a Cirque du Soleil show. They're not inexpensive. I mean, it's $80 for a ticket in the back. If you want some decent seats, you're looking at $120 a seat, $150 a seat. I love them, and every
yeah.
time I go to purchase one of their tickets, I'm like, man, this is just so expensive for a show, And I buy the ticket, and then I show up, and at the end of intermission, every single one, I've always said, man, I would have paid twice as much for this. Because it is just so incredible, and they work so hard to make it that incredible. So that's what you want, is for when your clients to have an experience for you, for them to say like, wow, this was worth every penny, maybe even more, instead of saying like, I felt swindled, or I felt, cheapened or something. I felt like I was taken advantage of. So that's definitely the goal. And Boudoir is especially, it's especially an emotional and heavy thing because of what we're talking about. Like I said, kind of phototherapy, which I don't think you get as much with weddings. I don't think you
Right.
get as much with, you can kind of get it with. You don't even really get it with baby pictures. I mean, people love buying pictures of their kids, and if you take cute pictures of their kids, like they're going to buy them. That's sort of like, I can't believe this is my kid. I think high school senior portraits kind of have that, like they're growing up, and it's crazy to see them as adults now. Like they're changed. There's a time in their life that they're changing. It's a representation of somebody that they've grown into. I was talking with I did a Instagram live with my friend Cara Marie. She's another
Yeah.
boudoir photographer, and she mentioned something about if somebody says you're too expensive, really what they mean is they don't see the value. So don't lower your prices, increase your value.
Yeah. I completely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, once you see a value in that analogy of the Cirque du Soleil is on point, because I'd never been to one and I went to one, and I was just like, oh, these tickets are so expensive. But when I walked out of that place, I was like, that was awesome. That was like one of the best shows I've seen. It was hands down
Yes.
great. So like you said, the value is very important. When you can deliver value that maybe somebody else can't, people will definitely spend the money. So that's a great tip. um move One thing as well that I learned, and you just mentioned it earlier too, is tiering your pricing. Always have breaking it down to be able to add on additional expenses for your clients, and they can pick and choose where they spend on, and that kind of increases the revenue that you could make off of each shoot. Because when I think everybody that does photography will jump in and they'll be like, okay, this person wants a shoot. I'll charge you 200, 300, or I'll charge you $500. It's a set price, and you're just like literally capped at that. You'll never make anything more. So I learned that as well myself when I first started. I was just charging a set price. And one thing that helped me is I started using an invoicing service and just kind of like adding products and stuff like that. And that helped me break down like what I can charge. And then it also gives you like you said, tiering and different stuff that other clients can purchase as well. So
Yeah, definitely. So essentially, so the basic structure for any kind of portrait, something is you want to have the shoot fee one cost and the product's a separate cost. Because if you do it all in one, if you say it's $400 for the shoot and that includes all the pictures, there's no reason for them to spend any more money.
right.
So, and also it's important to break it down per hour. So, I did a shoot in Hawaii recently. This girl messaged me on Instagram. I never book on Instagram. Typically, people don't have the money to spend if they contact me there. It's different for everybody. I know some people who book on Instagram thousands of dollars clients, but for me, it just hasn't been the case. And so she reached out. What are you looking to get these pictures done for? Just for some promotion. Great. I said it's gonna be $500. It'll be an hour shoot, and you'll receive all of the pictures. So we shot for an hour, and then I can edit the pictures relatively quickly. I've learned how. So I edited the pictures in an hour, and I just sent her the photos. So I made $250 an hour for that particular shoot, which is amazing money.
Yeah.
If you can do 3, 4, 5 of those a day, like that's incredible. That's amazing money,
Right.
and more power to you. If we split it up and we do, it's obviously that's much cheaper than I would normally do $500 for the photo shoot, and then you purchase the picture separately. But that process takes me time to do hair and makeup. I pay my hair and makeup artist. We're going to try and sell an album. It's an hour and a half photo shoot. I'm still editing for an hour, but then we have an hour sales session where we sit together and we go over the pictures and she chooses. Then I've got cost of ordering the album, all of these different things. So it's more time for more money.
Right.
But if you can do that and you have on the low end, it's $1,500. It's like 7 hours for me to go from start to finish for a whole client experience. So $1,500, $700, or sorry, $1,500 for 7 hours. That's still about $200
Mm-hmm.
minus album cost and hair and makeup. So I'm making actually a little bit less if they buy my bottom one.
Right.
But if they decide they want my middle or higher tier packages, they end up spending 3,000 or 4,000. Now 3,500 divided by 7 ends up being $500 an hour. So think about it in terms of per hour. Don't be discouraged by this idea of mini shoots or doing shoot and burn if you're charging appropriately. But what most people end up doing is they'll do that for $200 and then they spend 8 hours editing all of the pictures. They spend 2 hours shooting, so they did 10 hours for $200 an hour. They only make $20 an hour, which is it's just not enough, I think, as a
No.
photographer. Sustainable business if you want to be getting better gear and renting out studios and things like that. So that's essentially how it works. Separate shoot fee from your album fee, and then you just have the least amount that you're willing to shoot for. If that's $200 or $300, then make that the lowest. And then have a middle package that comes with a lot more that's exciting, and then have the top package that includes everything.
Right.
That's kind of how if you look at Apple and how they price their computers, you got the base one that comes with like 8 gigs of RAM and the base processor, and it's like, sure, this will work, but if you're doing photo work, you need this one. But if you're doing video work, you need this one. So then it's got their different tiers. If you go to McDonald's, there's small, mediums, and larges. The next thing is that within how pricing typically works, people don't want to be the cheapest. They also rarely want to spend the most money possible because they want to find themselves somewhere in the middle. So that's what your goal should be. Have your middle collection look really good. If 4 clients in a row buy your top collection, you move your pricing down. So if your top collection is $1,000, now your middle collection is $1,000 and your top one is $1,500. So that's kind of like a basic pricing for portraits.
Yeah, that's great. It's great, and I think maybe, as I mentioned, I mentioned it was the hard part of the business is the hard part of it, but I think what I meant by that is the mental breakdown of it, like actually getting away from that set pricing and like really understanding how you can charge it is like the difficult part. But once you just like everything else, once you do it, it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that. Yeah, at first, just the same with pictures. You're copying somebody else's pictures.
Yeah.
You start your business, you'll probably copy somebody else's pricing guide or somebody else's emails, and then you'll read it back and you'll say, actually, this doesn't really sound like my voice. And so you'll make some changes, and it'll kind of continue to grow. So
Right.
it will continue to change and grow as you grow, but it's definitely something like you said. You just got to get started.
Right. And Michael, what kind of tips or would you give somebody? Your niche is people that are not models, people that are not experienced in doing so. So it could be. I mean, just thinking about it, I can think that these customers may any portrait photographer on Instagram that poses models, lingerie, bikinis, and stuff like that. Those girls are comfortable doing that. What do you do on your end to make these people that have never modeled comfortable? I think that is also a challenge. I would think.
Yeah, I think the first thing to note is that when somebody hires you, they're sort of walking in with their eyes open. So I think a lot of people kind of imagine the scenario that's like, oh, this person's probably never gotten their picture taken before like this. They're probably expecting to be shooting with their shirt on the whole time. How am I going to get them comfortable to shoot in their underwear? And the thing is, if they sign up to shoot boudoir with you, they're already planning on shooting in their underwear.
Right.
It's like, I think that part is that's initially kind of more overwhelming. It's just like it's going to happen. It's expected. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the comfort a lot of times starts before the first picture is even taken. So in your phone call with them, in your client testimonials on your website, in your email communications, in your during hair and makeup, all these things add to the comfort of the client before that first picture is even taken, before they get into that first outfit. So that's the first thing. The second thing is it's important to treat it as if it's no different than any other photo shoot, which sounds counterintuitive. But the weirder you make it, the more of a big deal that you make it, the more of a big deal it'll be for them. It would be like the scenario if a guy were to ask a girl and he went up to her and he was like, hey, I just want you to know I'm not a creepy dude. I'm definitely not going to try and take advantage of you. I'm a good guy. And I've only had good experiences with relationships in the past. She'd be like, why is this person trying so hard to
Right.
tell me that they're not creepy? Now I'm creeped out,
Yeah.
you know? So to treat it as though this is very normal, here we are. We're going to start doing some pictures. I think these pictures look great. Do you want to do a couple, where your shirt's a little bit more unbuttoned? I think that would look really great. Are you comfortable with that? And they say, yeah, that sounds great, or no, or whatever it is that they'll say.
Right.
But you just treat it as if you're asking them literally anything else. So I'll go up and like fix tags sometimes on the back of their bras. I'll say, you've got a tag up. Can I fix that? Yeah, sure, they'll say. And then I'll just go up and I'll fix it. The way that I put it is like I'm picking up a piece of trash on the ground,
Right.
like it's nothing. And so that's really the way to do it, is just to treat it as though you've done this before and it's a normal experience. Because what will happen is by the end of the photo shoot, typically they're like, you just have a conversation with them while they're just standing there in their underwear, and it's not, they don't feel like they have to cover up, because you've created a safe space for them to just trust you that they can have a conversation. Like, I definitely recommend a lot of eye contact. you know, at least on the guy's side, a lot of eye contact. Use terms that are not objectifying. If you, instead of saying like stick your butt up, you say like lift up your hips, or if you want to say instead of point your boobs in that direction, you just say turn your shoulders. So you just learn a couple different words to use. But as far as the comfort goes, yeah, just treat it super normal. If they look really nervous, have a conversation with them about something not related to the photo shoot. I'll ask them what they did that weekend or what else they have planned coming up. And it's like what dentists do, right? They're like, "Hey, how was your weekend?" And then they go to drill into your mouth. Is pretty much what it is. But the last thing that I want to say on that topic was um, on convert. Oh, if you get a good picture of them, show them on the back of the camera, because a lot of the times what they're nervous about is not so much like being comfortable with another person. It's they're nervous that these pictures are going to be bad. And if the pictures are bad, then they hired this photographer, and then not even that could get a good picture of them. So if you can
Right.
show them a photo of themselves and give them a little bit of boost of confidence, it'll really help the rest of the rest of the experience.
Got it. That's great. And I mean, I see that some of your videos and stuff that you have a hair and makeup artist that you work with. And I've noticed, at least from the portraits, I've never done boudoir or anything like that, but portraits that I've taken, I usually don't like when there's too much makeup. I mean, what's your preference on that, and how do you choose the makeup artist, or how do you communicate that with them, or what are your tips on that?
Yeah, so makeup is definitely like one of those things that I know nothing about.
Right.
That said, I've learned to be able to tell like good makeup and bad makeup just from looking at it. I couldn't say, "Hey, could you do a little more eyeshadow?" or "Looks like the
Right.
contour is a little off." I can just say, I can tell that that's not, what I'm
Right.
looking for. And so I've had a handful of different makeup artists come out, and three things are important to me. You're poignant, you're easy to communicate with, you schedule well, you're not like messaging me, "Hey, wait, I forgot what are the dates this month." You got to be reliable.
Right.
Second thing that's important to me is that they're good at their job, and then third thing that's important to me is that they are good at connecting with the clients, because the clients are going to be nervous when they sit down. They got to be able to have conversations with them.
Right.
So everybody wants the same makeup. Almost everybody wants exactly the same makeup, which is, I want to still look like myself, but I want it to look good. And so they're like, "I want it to look like I'm wearing makeup, but I don't want it so much so that you can't recognize me." Everybody says the exact same thing. It's hilarious. And they think they're the first ones saying it. My makeup artists, they just ask them, "What do you typically wear? What products do you like to use? What outfits did you bring?" And then they go ahead and make it happen. And from there, they can go ahead and, if they want to add more or take some off, like the makeup artist can do that. But
Right.
I pretty much leave that up to them. And I tell everybody, it'll be a little bit more than you're used to, because you're doing something that you're not used to doing. And then also because, the photographs are not going to be from 6 inches away from your face, we usually add a little bit more makeup than you're used to, because when you're far away and you're doing these portraits, it shows up really well on the camera.
Okay. Perfect. Hey, those are really great tips. It's I think I see a lot of people doing portraits or similar or boudoir shoots, but they're not as organized. They're just kind of like, hey, let's shoot and do this type of stuff. But seeing your work, you can see the amount of experience and knowledge that you put into it, because it's your everyday person. When you go out, you look at anybody those are the people that you're shooting. Do you typically shoot with lights, or do you use natural light?
I use all natural light. When I was looking for a place to shoot, it was really important to me to find something like that. Most homes have decent enough, they've got a window and they've got a time of day where the sun is coming in that window. So sorry. That's typically when I try and shoot. So I do everything natural light. I think it's more comfortable for the client, because again, they're not used to shooting like this. So fiddling around with the settings on your camera, paying attention to your lights and your settings and taking a test shot and then checking it, all that stuff, I think takes away from the client. So I think that's really important to me, to use natural light in that way. And then also, honestly, I'm just better at it.
Right.
I think it looks more real. I think it looks more, it goes with the character of what I'm trying to create in my images.
Yeah, I agree. I think using natural light looks so much. It looks natural. It looks. I mean, I feel like it has a pop to it when that natural light hits, rather than artificial light. It definitely gives it a better look, for in my opinion. So, hey, Michael, that's great stuff there. Last question. We're all quarantined because of this whole pandemic. What's keeping you busy right now? What is it that you're doing to kind of fill in the time, since a lot of us can't really do a lot of work?
Yeah, well, so that's a good question. I've been doing things like, things like this. I did an Instagram live earlier. I started my Facebook group for boudoir photographers, for people interested in starting boudoir business. So I've been giving that a ton of time and attention. And then I've been prepping to record a new course. So I've been doing some things like, this is a brand new camera. I got this yesterday. This is the EOS RP. That's going to be my
Yeah.
dedicated camera for shooting specifically up here in my desk, to be able to go over live image critiques and to be going over pricing and sharing my computer screen and things like that. So I've been doing some things to set that up. I've been playing guitar a little bit more often, which has been nice. But I really recommend that. It may feel like we're quarantined, we can't do that much work, but there is, I mean, I think I definitely know, if you're an actual professional boudoir photographer or portrait photographer, wedding photographer, 90% of the work takes place outside of clicking the button. So this is the time, if you were thinking about starting a business, or if you were thinking about getting into shooting a certain genre, like, now is the time to set up all of the other things. Now is the time to figure out emails that you're going to send to people. Now's the time to put together a website that just has a blank portfolio page that's ready to toss images in for when we can all start shooting again. Now is the time to start to learn and understand pricing, so that when you're able to start shooting again, you can immediately start to earn more money. So I have been using this time a lot to work on my, helping photographers in that way, help people get ready. And then also for me, I have, a certain amount of time that I spend towards my actual clients, and I have a certain amount of time that I spend towards helping photographers. So that's the stuff I've been focused on right now, is I've been working on prepping up a new, my next boudoir course. And so I'm like spending all that time outlining it and figuring out the ways that I can do it differently and helpful, and things like that. So I think that, and also I've been watching just way too much Netflix, way too much Netflix, which has been, but I try not to start that until 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah, definitely. Me and my wife would just sit down and just start watching full seasons of stuff. So I try to stay away from that. And I think, there's, no matter what you do, there's always something you can do. Like, I myself have been printing a lot of like my landscape photos and framing them and doing stuff
Very
like
cool.
that. Been focusing a lot more on the podcast, doing more episodes and recording more often. Just kind of bringing in like knowledge that you are able to provide over to, people that want to listen to it. Other ways of being entertained, rather than just sitting there watching Netflix, because it could be, I mean, that thing could kill weeks if you leave it.
Oh yeah, there's enough on there for it, for sure.
Well, Michael, I really appreciate your time, and sitting down with me and talking, and providing your insight. Last thing, I do want to just give you a little bit of time to just kind of cover, your Instagram, your Facebook page, whatever it is that you focus on, to, that for anybody that wants to get into boudoir, where they can find your information, where they can watch your YouTube channel, just stuff like that. Plug that in, and I usually do an intro in the beginning of the episode, so I'll kind of cover that as well, so it's not just at the end.
Beautiful. So yeah, so if you guys want, let's talk about what your goals are. If you are curious about boudoir and you want to learn a little bit about, some free tips here and there, just check out my YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/Michael Sasser. Um, and there are like 75 free tutorials on posing and editing and business and lighting and things like that. So that's definitely where you're going to want to go to get started. When you kind of get a grasp of that, come over and hang out with me in my Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/Sasser Education. And like I said, we're doing live image critiques in there. We're going to be doing um, business discussions. It's going to be very actionable. So it's definitely not a spot to just come and chill and just, take a look at some pictures. It's very much going to be, we're going to be holding each other accountable. And then I'm posting on my Instagram, Sasser Stills Boudoir. You can check that out there. And then lastly, if you decide that, business is the route that you want to take, you want to start to think about earning some money with this. My Boudoir courses on boudoircourses.com. The Boudoir Accelerator course is really that one to help you get started. It's got a ton of information in there that's helping people that have never taken a boudoir picture before, all the way up to people who are averaging $1,000 that want to average a little bit more. So those are pretty much the spots to do it. YouTube, ton of free stuff. Courses, they're 30% off right now during the quarantine. The Facebook group for actionable, kind of holding each other accountable, getting stuff done. And then my Instagram is just posting stuff.
That's great. That's great. A lot of content.
It's weird to say that many things. I can't believe that I've hit that many platforms and have been sharing all kinds of stuff. But it's just been the best thing that I've decided to do. It's been great.
Right. That's great. Again, Michael, I really appreciate you sitting down and talking to us and giving your insight and experience and information that everybody can use. So I appreciate that, and thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, man.
For sure.